thank you very much. So my name is Joao Pedro de Magalhaes, and I'm a lecturer at the University of Liverpool, where I study the process of aging. Now, I'll start with some bad news, which is that we're all going to die. And in the best case scenario, you're going to grow old, you're going to degenerate, you're going to senesce, and then you're going to die. Now, you are aware of this already, but most people try not to think about it too much. Most people accept their own mortality, either via religion, by thinking of or believing in an afterlife or some other fantasy, or by just accepting that it's inevitable and it's going to happen. So you psychologically just have to accept it. Now, I've never done so. Ever since I was a child, that I didn't accept it. I thought, just like we can cure diseases, why can't we cure aging? Now, of course, I wasn't the first one to think about that. There's been a number of men that have tried to find the fountain of the youth or the elixir of life, so far unsuccessfully, and sometimes even with tragic consequences. So, for example, Qin Shi Huang, he was a Chinese emperor over 2,000 years ago, and he tried to achieve immortality by taking these pills prepared by the court physicians of the time, which were made of mercury. So sadly and ironically, he died of mercury poisoning. Or take Alexander Bogdanov. So he was actually a fascinating man involved in the Russian Revolution, and he tried to achieve rejuvenation with blood transfusions, which he claimed it worked until one day he received blood from a student with malaria, and it didn't work well. But that was the first scientific attempt. And now, with all of the technologies that we have, can science cure aging? So part of what has driven my work is that there is reasons to be optimistic. So, for example, some animals, some vertebrates, like some rockfish, like some species of turtles, like some salamanders, appear not to age at all. So aging is neither inevitable nor universal. And now we have technologies to study these animals and to study centenarians and long-lived people at the genetic level, for example. So the cost of sequencing DNA had dropped dramatically. You can sequence your genome nowadays by less than £1,000. And that's part of what our lab does. We study genetics, for example, of the naked mole rat. And we're interested in these animals, not just because they're beautiful, but because they live a very long time and they're extraordinarily resistant to cancer. The other species that we're interested in is the bowhead whale. And these are animals that have been estimated to live over 200 years in the wild without doctors. So it's remarkable, and they must have mechanisms to protect them against diseases. So what we and others have been doing is we study their genetics, we study their proteins, we study their genes to try to identify changes and mechanisms that protect against age-related diseases and confer longevity. And the ultimate goal is to apply this knowledge to human beings, to, for example, develop drugs that mimic the effects of some of these genes that we find in long-lived species or in long-lived human beings, or via gene therapy or other interventions. And there is reason to think that this might work in human beings, because it works in animal models. So we can manipulate the process of aging in animal models. For example, in worms, in tiny worms that live only a few weeks, we can switch off just one gene and they live 10 times longer. And even in mammals, for example, like in mice, we can change a single gene and extend lifespan by up to 50% and retard the process of aging. So the animals still age, but they do so and they develop age-related diseases much later in life. Now, of course, changing genes is still quite complicated, but now there's longevity drugs. There's compounds that in animal models retard the process of aging, extend longevity by up to 10-20%. So I'm very optimistic that we will be able to retard human aging in the foreseeable future. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be living forever or be able to cure aging. That is still not in the horizon yet, although I think it will be possible one day. So, but for us here, probably we will not live forever. One last option would be cryonics, the idea that you are frozen after you die and then you revive one day in the future where aging has been cured and all diseases have been cured. I am not confident that this will work now, but I would keep an open mind about scientific progress in cryopreservation to make biostasis possible one day. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and if you're interested in anything, feel free to get back in touch. Thank you. Good night.